Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. President Trump signs an executive order to require voter IDs. Do states have the right to refuse? We talked to a legal analyst. A mammoth rescue operation begins after a major earthquake struck Afghanistan. Hundreds killed and thousands more are injured. Villagers look on at crumbled homes and lost family members among the devastation. An appeals court rules that most of the president's tariffs are illegal. What is at stake for American workers and families? Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says more immigration agents are on the way to Chicago, and she accuses CBS of deceptively editing her interview responses. Officials confirmed that the plane carrying the European Commission president was jammed. How this affected the landing as GPS, radar, and other tools were not working.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us today. Hope everyone is enjoying the Labor Day holiday. President Trump said today that India has offered to reduce its tariffs on U.S. goods to zero. Trump wrote on Truth Social, quote, "They have now offered to cut their rates to nothing, but it's getting late. They should have done so years ago." In the Post, the president accused India of setting the highest tariff on U.S. goods of any country. He said because of that, U.S. businesses are unable to sell there. He also called trade relations with India a, quote, one-sided disaster. The Trump administration currently charges tariffs of up to 50% on Indian goods. The Indian embassy in Washington did not immediately respond to Trump's comments. Voter identification is the latest focus of the Trump administration. President Trump says he will issue an executive order requiring voter ID for every ballot cast. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on that and reactions after a federal appeals court struck down many of the president's tariffs.
President Trump wrote on Truth Social on Saturday, "Voter ID must be part of every single vote, no exceptions. I will be doing an executive order to that end." Trump also vowed to eliminate mail-in voting, except for overseas military and those incapacitated by illness. The president has long called for paper ballots and hand counts, and earlier this month pledged to ban mail-in ballots and voting machines ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. Turning to trade, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said Sunday it's full steam ahead with negotiations, despite a court ruling that most of Trump's tariffs are illegal. Greer says the administration will appeal the ruling, speaking on Fox and Friends.
This is not over. All the tariffs are still in effect.
Greer warned withdrawing the tariffs would devastate the economy.
It would be disastrous. Remember that over President Biden's presidency, the trade deficit increased by 40%. It was already enormous, and it increased to $1.2 trillion, which means manufacturing jobs overseas, importing food from overseas. The imbalance is just unsustainable.
The trade representative says pulling the rug from out under tariffs would harm the country.
We've negotiated a number of great trade deals with companies premised on the existence of these tariffs.
The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit Friday ruled 7-4 that President Trump's reciprocal tariffs on U.S. trading partners are mostly illegal. Trump thanked one of the case judges on Truth Social, writing, "One Democrat, Obama appointed, actually voted to save our country. I would like to thank him for his courage. He loves and respects the USA." Trump also wrote that, quote, "Without tariffs and all of the trillions of dollars we have already taken in, our country would be completely destroyed and our military power would be instantly obliterated." Trump had invoked the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977 to declare a national security emergency as grounds for the tariffs. The ruling will not take effect until October 14th, giving the Trump administration time to appeal the decision to the Supreme Court. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro says the administration is confident the High Court will back the president. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
An appeals court ruled that most of the president's tariffs are illegal. Joining us now to discuss this is Daniel Lacalle, chief economist at Tresses, a wealth management and financial service company. He's also an international financial analyst and author of the book Freedom or Equality. So good afternoon, Daniel. You know, I would say Happy Labor Day to you, but I don't believe you have that over there today. But anyways, thanks for joining us today. So your first thought on this, White House Trade Advisor Peter Navarro responding to the ruling on Sunday, saying that the ruling could cause negative economic consequences. What are your analysis?
Well, let's start from the negative consequences. If we think about the negative consequences, the first one is the lack of credibility of the United States. If once many countries have signed so many trade deals, suddenly a judge or a court of appeal decides that the tariffs are illegal. Makes absolutely no sense. It's very important to understand that what the Court of Appeal is saying is more than the past. It's talking about the reciprocal tariffs that President Trump announced in what is called Liberation Day. But ultimately, we have found, and it's very evident, that President Trump was using that announcement in order to negotiate a good trade deal that was positive, not just for the United States, but also for the trading partners that signed it. So what the Court of Appeal is basically doing is making a decision on something that makes absolutely no sense, because those trade deals demonstrate that the U.S. trading partners agree with the current level of tariffs and agree with so many positive elements that have been signed afterwards. It's a complete illogic decision. And obviously, I also believe that the Supreme Court will overrule it.
Okay, let's say hypothetically that these tariffs are eliminated. What disruptions could we see? What is at stake for American workers and companies?
Okay, the first thing is that the negative consequence would be immediate, because in the trade deals that have been signed, there have been an enormous amount, more than $2 trillion of investments secured for America from the trading partners. Those would be immediately eliminated. Number two, there are enormous commitments from companies and from countries to invest in the United States and to bring manufacturing jobs to the United States. Those would also be eliminated in technology, in military, in also in many sectors. Actually, if you think about it, also in the energy sector. But more importantly, the United States needs to reduce its trade deficit, and it needs to reduce its fiscal deficit. So another element that would be exceedingly negative is that we have just learned from the CBO that the tariff agreements will reduce the deficit in the next 10 years by $4 trillion. That obviously would be dismantled. And that would mean much higher debt, much higher inflation, and much higher problems for public finances. Furthermore, what we know as well is that the current agreements are bringing in between 23 to $30 billion a day for the United States. That would also disappear. So for the average citizen, this ruling, if it actually happened, would be absolutely devastating for the economy. It would reduce investment, it would reduce jobs, it would reduce growth, and it would certainly bring another very elevated trade deficit like the one that the Biden administration left.
And just building on your point, Daniel, do you think that prolonged legal battles, could that undermine U.S. credibility or commitments in trade among trading partners if a trade agreement is already being made?
Absolutely. Think about this. There's been a tremendous and complex negotiation. A lot of people involved in those negotiations. The countries involved reach a very significant agreement that is good for both. And suddenly, a court in the United States decides that it's illegal. Think about this. If you were a citizen of France, of Spain, of the UK, of any of the countries that are trading partners with the United States, it shows that the legal system in the United States is interfering with government negotiations to the extent that legal and investor security in the United States is undermined. It makes absolutely zero sense. Think about this, for example. The European Union negotiators have reached a very, very important, probably the most important trade deal ever with the United States. Those negotiators are not being challenged by any of the courts in any of the countries of the European Union. And we're talking about a European Union in which there are many sovereign states and in which there are numerous regions that have a tremendous level of autonomy. So think about this. If the European Union reaches an agreement with the United States that is positive for both, and the courts in the European Union don't try to eliminate it, think about the image that the United States is given when a court of appeal is suddenly ruling on something that is not the past. It's actually like a distant past because it's ruling on the Liberation Day announcement. It is not ruling on the very significant and reciprocal and approved and completely free agreements between sovereign nations.
Yeah, those are some very good points there, Daniel. And I'm just thinking about all the aspects, all the areas this could impact. What about markets? Are we going to see volatility in markets amid this uncertain outlook on tariffs?
Well, we're not seeing a lot of uncertainty and a lot of volatility in markets because markets in general took the news with the same way that I have taken it, which is to see that it's basically going to be completely eliminated by the Supreme Court, and I think that that's basically the consensus. However, think for a moment if the Supreme Court ruled the same way as the Court of Appeal. There is absolutely no agreement that any administration is going to make now or in the future that would be considered as valid in long-term agreements. It's incredible. Nobody in their right mind would consider in Japan, in China, in South Korea, in the European Union with 27 sovereign nations, and they are agreeing and reaching positive agreements, and suddenly you have a situation in which there is absolutely no legal certainty because a court of appeal can suddenly completely destroy the work of negotiators that have taken weeks, in some cases months, to complete.
Wow, it seems like the impacts are very large when you put it into perspective for us. I'll just ask you one more thing, Daniel. Besides tariffs, let's say, are there any other tools, or is tariffs the best to achieve reshoring or reducing deficits?
Well, obviously, the United States doesn't have the tools that other countries have in order to try to bring back manufacturing, because it cannot put the trade barriers that other countries put. Therefore, tariffs are simply a way of leveling the playing field relative to countries that have increased massively their non-tariff barriers. And that is the problem. The problem is that other countries can increase those non-tariff barriers, but the way in which the United States legal system and trading system is built does not allow, obviously, the government, and that's a good thing, to impose massive trading barriers. So what I think is that we need to be aware of that fact when taking into account the approach of the Trump administration, but not just the Trump administration. What I find absolutely amazing is that this Court of Appeal made this ruling when it makes absolutely no mention of the fact that the Biden administration maintained all of the tariffs of the first administration, the first Trump administration, and actually increased some of them. So it looks like it's a political decision. It looks like it's not a ruling on the way in which tariffs have to be announced, which what it basically is saying is that it should go through Congress. Well, if it's saying that it should go through Congress, why didn't those judges and courts of appeal say anything about the tariffs of the Obama administration or the Biden administration? So there's a political motive. It is basically saying that the president has the ability to decide on measures relative to trade, except if it's Donald Trump.
Well, some very persuasive points you made, Daniel, today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Don. Have a great day and happy
well.
Labor Day for everybody.
Thank you. Coming up, President Trump signs an executive order to require voter ID. Do states have the right to refuse? We talked to a legal analyst. Stay tuned.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3. Puritan green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritan green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new.
Save big at Mathis Home with Labor Day deals in every department. Check out their new arrivals and save big on the latest living rooms. This reclining sofa is a great example of their unbeatable prices. It's just $449. Where else can you find a sofa with 2 built-in recliners for just $449? With their incredible selection, you're sure to find the sofa just right for you. Plus, they're all in stock, so you can take it home today or get it delivered absolutely free. Hurry in, these deals won't last long. Now through Labor Day, only at Mathis Home.
President Donald Trump said he will issue an executive order to require voter ID in order to cast a ballot. He also repeated his opposition to the widespread adoption of mail-in ballots. Joining us now to discuss is legal analyst Bobby Ann Cox. She's a civil rights attorney and fellow at the Brownstone Institute. So Bobby Ann, thank you very much for joining us on this Labor Day. So what do you think? The Constitution gives states the authority, right, to run elections. What is the legal basis then for a president to issue an executive order mandating voter ID or banning mail-in ballots?
So in this instance, we need to look at the elections clause of the U.S. Constitution. You are correct. It does say that states are the ones that get to control their elections in their states. However, it also says that it's with regards to congressional elections, that Congress can overrule the states. So if you read it carefully, states can control their elections. They can do them as they want. However, that doesn't give them free rein to do anything and everything they want. So the Elections Clause says that for congressional elections, federal elections, that Congress can step in and override a state. And what we're going to see here is a battle between President Trump issuing an executive order and what is Congress going to do. So the Elections Clause in our Constitution doesn't say that a president can issue an executive order in order to impose something like federal ID requirement for voting. But we did see in March of this year, there's currently a lawsuit going on because in March of this year, President Trump issued an executive order along similar lines with regards to voting, and which is currently in litigation. And in that case, the government attorneys are arguing that President Trump does have the power to do this via executive order because as the executive of the United States, he is charged with, as per the Constitution, enforcing our laws. And enforcing our laws means enforcing laws passed by Congress as well as enforcing the Constitution. So I have a feeling this is going to, if he issues this second executive order with regards to voter ID in elections, I have a feeling this is going to also end up as litigation in the courts to try to have the courts decide, what exactly is the purview of the Elections Clause in the Constitution. Does a president have the power to do this by executive order? Does Congress have to pass a law that requires nationwide voter ID in elections? So I have a feeling this is going to end up in the courts.
Okay, so I want to make this clear. Is the battlefield going to be with Congress or with the courts? Which one's going to play a bigger role?
Well, certainly Congress can pass a law to this effect. And in fact, the SAVE Act which was passed by the House of Representatives a few months back, but was not successful in the U.S. Senate, has language to that effect. So Congress can take action as per our Constitution. If Congress wants to pass a law that says that the states must require voter identification for those who are voting in the federal elections, then that's going to hold. In my opinion, that would be constitutional, that would be legal, that is a possibility that Congress can pass such a law. But what's going to be curious in this situation is that we have the president saying that he's going to issue an executive order requiring the nationwide, voter ID in order to vote. So the question then becomes, number one, is there going to be a legal challenge to that? Number two, is Congress going to then act on that? Sometimes when a president issues an executive order on a policy that they would like to see implemented, sometimes that then turns into Congress taking steps and making that into a federal law. And so it's going to depend which way this goes. I don't know if Congress is going to act on that. I don't know if the U.S. Senate is going to, take up the SAVE Act and pass the SAVE Act. It's very questionable which way this is going to go, but certainly from a legal standpoint, Congress would have the authority to make such a law requiring voter ID nationwide.
Okay, Bobby Ann, I also wanted to talk about the pros and cons of voter ID itself. So one of the arguments against voter ID is, does requiring that create barriers to voting?
Yes, so that is a common stance that you hear that is coming from those who do not support voter ID. In my opinion, that is just a ludicrous position to take, and it's also racist because what they're saying oftentimes in that argument is, well, those of the minority classes are not able to get voter or get government issued identification as easily as those who are not in the minority classes. And therefore, it's harder for those in the minority classes to vote because, they can't get government issued IDs. That's, like I said, ludicrous, and it's racist. Are you implying that they don't have the cognitive abilities to get a government issued ID? Come on. If that really is an obstacle for monetary reasons, then the simple way to solve that problem is, okay, then for purposes of issuing government issued IDs for voting purposes, you make those IDs free, right? The government pays for it, or our tax dollars pay for it. But yes, those that oppose voter ID are certainly not doing it because they think that it is more difficult for certain people of certain classes to get IDs. The only reason you oppose voter ID is because you want to be able to skew the results. You want to be able to cheat. You want to be able to have people voting that shouldn't be voting. And we see that coming out right now. The governor of California has said, and the governor of Illinois have both said that they do not want ICE agents anywhere near the election polls because it will scare people away. Well, the only people that you're going to scare away if you have ICE agents standing at the polls are people who shouldn't be voting, right? We're not supposed to have illegal aliens voting in our country. So this is all really just smoke and mirrors from where I can see.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about the cost issue, but you already addressed that in your answer. So I'll talk to you about the pros and cons of mail-in ballots now. Almost 1/3 of Americans voted by mail in 2024. What impact could it have eliminating it?
Right. So I don't think it's going to have an impact. If you eliminate mail-in voting, I don't think it's going to have an impact on those who want to vote, right? If you want to vote, you go to the polls and you vote. If you can't, now what President Trump has said is he'd like to eliminate mail ballots for everyone except those who are actually ill and cannot get to the polls. and then the military who are deployed somewhere and cannot get to the polls. And those were the instances in which we had the ability to do mail ballots originally. And many states have made this mail ballot into almost an automatic thing, particularly in New York. There's no reason you have to provide if you want to vote by mail today, which is not only against, common sense and security, it's also against our New York State Constitution. But what we see happening is that some states are allowing mail ballots to be an automatic thing, meaning they automatically mail out a ballot to vote to the names on the registration, the voter registration rolls. Now, what happens in that instance is it becomes very dangerous that ballot won't actually end up in the right hands. Because if you're mailing ballots out to every name on your voter registration rolls, but you have people on those rolls that either moved or they passed away or they left the state completely, or they just shouldn't be on the rolls in the first place because they're not eligible, because they're not an actual citizen of the country or a citizen of that state, then you've got a situation where you've got these ballots being mailed to people at addresses where they may not be, or they are, and they shouldn't be voting. And that encourages people to vote who shouldn't be voting. So if they get rid of mail ballots and only keep it for those who are military deployed, not there, cannot physically go and vote, and those that are so ill that they cannot physically go and vote, I actually think you're going to see an increase in the security of our elections. Because if you look at other nations, the United States is one of very few nations that allow for mail ballots. So it's other countries have these safeguards in place because they want to have secure elections and they want to have accountability. So I do think we should be tightening the reins on who can do mail ballots and when you can do mail ballots.
Well, all right, Bobby, and very comprehensive, very informative, as always. Thank you very much, and hope you enjoy the rest of the Labor Day holiday.
Thank you. You as well.
The Trump administration is upping its immigration enforcement plans in Chicago. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has confirmed more federal agents are on their way. Here's what we know.
The Department of Homeland Security is sending additional resources to Chicago, part of President Trump's broader plan to expand federal immigration enforcement. Noem confirmed this on CBS's Face the Nation in an interview on Sunday.
Well, we've already had ongoing operations with ICE in Chicago and throughout Illinois and other states, making sure that we're upholding our laws. But we do intend to add more resources to those operations.
The DHS has asked naval stations Great Lakes, 35 miles north of Chicago, to provide limited support in the form of facilities and other logistical needs. Noem defended past federal operations like in Los Angeles, crediting them with preventing widespread destruction and claiming thousands of arrests.
So many of those homes and businesses that were in downtown LA and in those areas were dealing with riots and violence, and coming in and bringing those federal law enforcement officers in was incredibly important to keeping peace.
But Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker said on CBS the administration was disrupting people's lives and called what it was doing dangerous and un-American. Noem responded, saying for 13 consecutive years, Chicago has had more murders than any other American city. This comes as President Trump ramps up criticism of Pritzker, warning on social media that Chicago must, quote, straighten it out fast or we're coming. Noem says Chicago is not being singled out, saying DHS is evaluating operations in cities nationwide, regardless of politics.
Every single city is evaluated for what we need to do there to make it safer. So we've got operations that, again, I won't talk about details on, but we absolutely are not looking through the viewpoint at anything we're doing with a political lens.
After her interview aired, Secretary Noem accused CBS of selectively editing her remarks on immigration enforcement in a high-profile MS-13 case. In a statement, Noem said the network, quote, shamefully edited the interview to whitewash the truth. She said she was talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a suspected gang member and human smuggler. The department says CBS cut parts of Noem's answers describing Garcia's alleged crimes in defending Trump's enforcement actions. CBS has published the entire transcript on its website, including the portions Noam says were edited out of the broadcast. In an editor's note, the network says Abigail Garcia has not been charged with some of the things Noam accused him of, including counts of child abuse. Meanwhile, with federal agents preparing to move into Chicago, a legal fight could be coming. The city's mayor has signed an executive order barring the Chicago Police Department from helping federal authorities with immigration enforcement or any related patrols.
And just a note, NTD reached out to CBS Face the Nation for a response to allegations from the Department of Homeland Security, but we didn't hear back before airtime. Meanwhile, a federal judge in D.C. has halted deportation flights carrying Guantanamo children for at least 14 days. The emergency order comes after attorneys argue that U.S. law was being violated. Charter buses had already rolled up to planes in Texas with some children seated on board awaiting departure. The judge criticized the Trump administration's timing, saying removals were planned, quote, in the wee hours of the morning. Advocacy groups say the plan skirts a 2008 law that protects unaccompanied minors from immediate removal. For now, hundreds of children remain in U.S. custody while the legal battle plays out. The Epoch Times reached out to the Department of Justice for comment. The Department of Housing and Urban Development is cracking down on illegal immigrants in public housing. HUD is giving local housing authorities 30 days to verify U.S. citizenship or legal immigration status for Section 8 recipients and residents in federally funded housing. Housing Secretary Scott Turner wrote in a Friday letter, quote, no longer will illegal aliens be able to leave citizenship boxes blank or take advantage of HUD-funded housing, riding the coattails of hardworking American citizens. Section 8 vouchers are offered to people with low incomes, older adults, and people who are disabled. They help recipients pay for housing. About 2.3 million households receive rental assistance through the program on an annual basis. Demand is so high that eligible applicants typically have to wait years to receive benefits to be eligible. A person must be a U.S. citizen or be in the country legally. President Trump wants drug makers to publish the numbers and results of their COVID-19 drugs. This comes amid conflicting opinion within the CDC about the success of the drugs. And results from their COVID drugs, but don't show them to the general public. Trump asks the drug makers to clear up the debate over this issue, saying the CDC is being ripped apart over this question. Trump's comments come as the CDC deals with high-profile resignations and major changes to its COVID vaccine policy. Officials confirmed that the plane carrying the European Commission president was jammed. How this affected the landing as GPS, radar, and other tools were not working. Stay tuned for that story when we come back from the break.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay.
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love, your mind.
That first time seeing my son, I feel like my life did a 180. I was already trying to change my perspective of life and really just be a father figure that I never had. Being present is the most important part. I'm still growing every day, becoming a better version of myself. to be the better mirror for my son. I mean, he's just grown. He's becoming his own person. Man, at first I saw him dance, bro, he brings the vibes, you know what I'm saying? He brings the party no matter what. He really a definition of like why he loves somebody. And I love him to the death of me.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hundreds were killed and thousands more injured after a 6.0 magnitude earthquake struck Afghanistan on Sunday night. Rescuers struggled to reach remote and mountainous areas to help the affected regions as part of a mammoth aid operation. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson has more on this.
More than 800 people were killed and thousands more injured as a major earthquake struck southeastern Afghanistan late on Sunday. It's one of the worst such disasters in the country in recent years.
It was midnight when the earthquake started and shook us all violently, even breaking our house. God had mercy, and we managed to escape outside.
This was my brother's house, and he, along with 3 of his children, were martyred. My other brother, together with his sons, was also martyred there. 2 of my nephews have also been martyred. This is the condition of our home. Our dead are lying there on the ground.
The 6.0 magnitude earthquake struck just before midnight local time at a depth of 10 kilometers. The epicenter lay near the eastern city of Jalalabad. It's one of the 5 largest cities in Afghanistan and the capital of the Nangarhar province. Tremors were also felt in other South Asian countries, including neighboring Pakistan and India. Authorities scrambled to rescue survivors. A provincial public health head said they prepared 4 or 5 ambulances last night.
We traveled during the night and arrived here at early morning prayer time after walking for 5 to 6 hours. Currently, 4 to 5 helicopters have carried the injured, and the evacuation is still ongoing.
The Afghan Taliban government has mobilized several teams related to security, health, transport, food, and more to ensure comprehensive and full support is provided to those affected. At least 40 flights have been carried out to transport bodies and more than 400 of the injured. Afghanistan is prone to devastating earthquakes, and it experienced tremors with a magnitude of more than 5.0 on at least 4 occasions between April and August alone. Sunday's earthquake, however, is the worst since June 2022, when a 6.0 magnitude quake killed more than 1,000 people. Afghanistan's location is at the intersection of 2 major tectonic plates, the Indian plate and the Eurasian plate. As the Indian plate moves northward and collides with the Eurasian plate, the pressure between the two creates regular seismic activity in the region. Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
Officials are confirming that the plane carrying the European Commission president was jammed. GPS, radar, and other tools were not working as the plane was landing after the interference. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pasdar has more.
They suspect that this was due to blatant interference by Russia.
The European Commission says Bulgarian authorities suspect that Russia is behind a recent plane jamming incident. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen was heading to Bulgaria on Sunday when her plane's navigation system was reportedly blocked. The EU says the plane was unable to use GPS, radar, direction finders, and more while approaching the airport to land.
We are, of course, aware and used to somehow to the threats and intimidations that are a regular component of Russia's hostile behavior.
Meanwhile, von der Leyen is in Lithuania on Monday. The EU has been using the profits from Russian assets frozen in the West to support Ukraine. Von der Leyen now says this project might be expanded.
So far, 3.7 billion euros have been generated by windfall profits, and more is to come on a regular basis.
Also on Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin is in China. Putin praises a meeting he had with President Trump in Alaska 2 weeks ago.
The mutual understanding that was reached at a recent Russia-U.S. summit in Alaska heads the same direction. I hope it paves the way to peace in Ukraine.
Putin made the comments during the two-day meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The organization is an international group founded to counter Western alliances. During remarks on Monday, Chinese leader Xi Jinping set out a vision for a new global order challenging the US and the West. Xi says non-Western leaders should rearrange how security and economic structures are being set up. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Now, a large buildup of U.S. naval forces in and around the southern Caribbean. The Trump administration says it's aimed at combating drug cartels. Venezuelan officials believe their government might be the real target. Here's more.
Drone footage on Sunday captured a U.S. Navy-guided missile destroyer docked near the entrance to the Panama Canal. President Donald Trump has said combating drug cartels is a central goal for his administration, but it is unclear how the U.S. military presence would disrupt the drug trade. Most seaborne drug traffic to the U.S. moves via the Pacific, not the Atlantic where the U.S. forces are. Caribbean shipments largely arrive by clandestine flights. Venezuelan officials believe their government might be the real target. Venezuelan Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino issued a warning to the U.S. on Sunday.
I'm speaking to the imperialists of the North. We're getting ready and we will fight if you dare set foot in Venezuela. We're watching events around the world.
In early August, the United States doubled its reward to $50 million for information leading to the arrest of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro over allegations of drug trafficking and links to criminal groups. Venezuelan officials have said the U.S. is threatening the country with naval deployments in violation of international treaties and dismissed U.S. claims that the country and its leadership are key to major international drug trafficking.
Former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani is recovering after he was hurt during a car crash in New Hampshire. This happened in Manchester on Saturday night. A spokesperson for Giuliani says the car he was in was hit from behind by a speeding vehicle. Shortly before the crash, Giuliani was flagged down by a woman who says she was involved in a domestic violence incident. Giuliani stayed with the woman until police could arrive. Soon after that, Giuliani's vehicle was hit. The 81-year-old was taken to a trauma center. The former Trump lawyer suffered a broken bone in his back and injuries to his arm and leg. Giuliani is expected to remain in a hospital for several days, and his spokesperson says Giuliani is in great spirits. The U.S. Agency for Global Media is cutting more than 500 employees from Voice of America. This follows a months-long legal battle as judges sought to stop the administration. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has more.
The Trump administration pushing forward in its effort to slash the federal workforce. Over the weekend, the acting CEO for the U.S. Agency for Global Media, Carrie Lake, announced a reduction in force for Voice of America. The move eliminates 532 full-time VOA staff. Lake said the goal is to help reduce the federal bureaucracy, improve agency service, and save the American people more of their hard-earned money. VOA's parent company was among the agencies determined by Trump to be unnecessary, and Lake previously referred to the media outlet as not salvageable. VOA, sponsored by the U.S. government, was formed in 1942 to counter Nazi propaganda. Amid a previous cut, VOA's White House bureau chief, Patsy Widakuswara, said it's comical if it weren't so tragic. We're not just losing our jobs in journalism, we are abdicating our voice and influence in the world. Alternatively, Lake said the cuts would improve VOA's ability to provide truth to people across the world who live under murderous communist governments and other tyrannical regimes. The administration's cuts face multiple legal challenges. This latest move to slash the workforce came just one day after a federal judge blocked her from removing VOA's director. The judge has ordered Lake to sit for a deposition by lawyers for agency employees by September 15th. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
In Los Angeles, trees charred by the devastating Eaton fire in January will now be rebuilt into neighborhoods destroyed by the blaze. Here's more about the project and the challenges it's facing.
This lot in LA is housing trees and logs that were charred by the Eaton wildfire. The blaze scorched more than 14,000 acres of land in January and left the community of Altadena in ruins. But instead of being chipped or left to decompose, the trees are going to be repurposed to rebuild neighborhoods destroyed by the blaze. Jeff Perry is the founder of the Los Angeles-based company Angel City Lumber.
All of this and all going this way is all Altadena recovered tree logs from removed trees during remediation. And these logs over here behind me are from the Angeles National Forest, obviously abutting Altadena. And all of these logs will be put back as lumber back into Altadena rebuilds.
Perry helped launch the Altadena Reciprocity Project, which aims to turn the city's damaged trees into usable lumber for things like flooring, molding, and door and window jambs. For some residents, the project is personal. Altadena homeowner Matthew Burrows, who said he and his family lost everything in the Eaton fire, described his old tree as part of the family.
I thought the best way to honor the tree and to honor its legacy was to preserve it in terms of using it in the future and in our home. Bringing that tree back into our lives, it'll just be a constant reminder of those beautiful days that were and the amazing future that it's gonna be.
The project could produce between 1 and 2 million board feet for the rebuilding efforts in Altadena. But there are some roadblocks. Perry needs more workers and money to make it happen.
We need funding. So there's about, I'll call it $300,000 to $400,000 that in infrastructure that we're going to need to get up and running quickly.
New York City's Kaufman Music Center came alive this weekend with the sound of traditional bel canto singing. A special look at NTD's 10th International Chinese Vocal Competition after the break.
大提琴不仅仅是一件乐器，它是有生命、有感情的，需要我们精心的照顾。往往我们一个小小的动作，可能都会对人情绪产生微妙的影响。天音的品牌是福星，我们对于传统的理念很荣幸被神韵艺术团选为指定供应商。时间是酿造音色的不可替代的陪伴。我跟大提琴已经有60多年的友情了，每一把琴都有它自己的个性，熟悉它，才能真正发挥它的潜力。所以，我希望 给你的每一把琴，都是首先我所信任的。
My name's Stacy, I'm 57, and I was adopted in 2020.
We were adopted in 2019.
And we were adopted in 2021.
We had a house, and it sounds crazy, but it wasn't a home. The one thing that Jake and Emma brought is it became a home.
When I met Dakota, he had just turned 14.
You weren't there for the first this and the first that. I missed the first words, but we got a lot of other firsts.
Watching her say, oh my God, I cannot believe I got my license. And she's like, I passed. And I'm like, girl.
See them grow. It is.
They chose to love us. They didn't have to. They chose us. Family.
You and you. Kids in the middle.
What I thought was a complete life was nowhere near complete, but it is now.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org.
Food giant Nestle fires its CEO and appoints a replacement. This comes after an investigation finds the CEO breached the company's code of business conduct. The Swiss company says CEO Laurent Frixie had an undisclosed romantic relationship with a direct subordinate. Nestle's chairman says firing Frixie was a necessary decision and, quote, Nestle's values and governance are strong foundations of our company. Company veteran Frixie took over the CEO role in September last year. Nestle named Philip Navratil as his successor. Navratil has been with the company since 2001 and worked in its coffee business in Mexico and Central America. In a statement, he says he is honored to have the trust of the board. NTD's 10th International Chinese Vocal Competition has wrapped up in New York City. After 3 days of soaring performances, the winners have been announced. NTD's Sherry Ning reports.
From Puccini to Chinese art songs, the sound of bel canto filled New York City's Kaufman Music Center. Contestants from around the world came together to showcase traditional vocal arts rooted in purity, authenticity, goodness, and beauty.
This helped me to verify what is more than what is tradition and what I want, what I want to absorb from the world and from the history, from the modern world. I think it purifies me because every time when you stand on the stage, you show everything, of yourself, your inner heart, your technique.
Bel canto, Italian for beautiful singing, is a traditional vocal technique emphasizing purity of tone, smooth phrasing, and precise control. It forms the foundation of Western opera arias and Chinese art songs, both required in this competition. 1 gold, 3 silvers, 2 bronzes, and 4 honorable mentions were presented at the awards ceremony. The gold medal went to Song Ling Shi, a tenor from Vietnam.
Holding this gold award trophy in my hands, I feel immense pride and honor. It represents the highest glory pursued by all the singers who took part in today's competition. As I lift the trophy today, my heart is filled with pride and gratitude.
Audience members say the level of artistry on display rivaled the world's top stages.
When you have such a competition, you want to get the best, but actually you did get the best. And I'm a regular patron of the opera, of the Metropolitan Opera. And I was thinking as I was listening to the contestants that I hope the opera has a scout because, they could recruit anybody here for their productions.
Vocalists with the world-renowned Shen Yun Performing Arts served on the panel of judges. American opera legend Frederica von Stade also offered contestants special guidance in the master class.
The power of the human voice to convey love and kindness and goodness and strength and beauty is just amazing, and we need it in our world right now, which is so upside down.
This prestigious competition is part of NTD's International Cultural and Arts Series. The 2025 NTD International Classical Chinese Dance Competition will take place September 11th to 14th. We'll bring you coverage of that event as well. Reporting from New York, Sherry Ning, NTD News.
Coming up after the break, why do Mexican cartels rely on Chinese money laundering networks? How much money is being moved? We explore with the White House correspondent at the Epoch Times. Stay with us.
6-pound prescription glasses from Select Specs are always great value. There are no offer codes or first-time customers only. Anyone can buy them, anytime. And you can upgrade to Select Specs Express for next-day delivery. And with deferred payments, you can spread the cost.
See now, pay later with Select Specs £6 specs. Next day delivery and deferred payment options available at selectspecs.com/£6.
What if you could whiten your teeth by simply brushing your teeth? Now you can with Smile Actives, the teeth whitening breakthrough that safely gets your teeth white and keeps them white every day, just by brushing your teeth.
I never thought that whitening my teeth could be so easy. I just put the gel on the brush, the toothpaste on it, brush, and I can see my white teeth.
Simply add Smile Actives to any toothpaste and our patented PolyClean technology activates into a powerful microfoam that penetrates into the enamel surface to safely lift and remove stains.
You need a simple way to whiten your teeth. Without strips, without trays, without going to the dentist. And it was about time that a product was developed that you would be able to do that with just brushing.
And now Smile Actives is even better with new Pro Whitening Gel with 33% greater whitening power, clinically shown to whiten teeth faster, up to 8 shades. 100% of users saw whiter teeth. On food stains, coffee and wine stains, even on veneers, crowns, and dentures.
I eat the blueberries, I drink the coffee, and I know that Smile Actives will keep my teeth white every day.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Why spend hundreds of dollars for whitening treatments at the dentist when now you can whiten your teeth with new Smile Actives Pro Whitening Gel every time you brush your teeth? Call or go to smileactives.com and for a limited time get new Pro Whitening Gel for just $24.95. Order in the next 5 minutes and buy one, get one absolutely free for just $24.95. That's 2 for 1 and save 58%. We'll even include free shipping. Get your teeth whiter guaranteed or return it within 60 days for your money back.
I smile every day now.
The difference is literally night and day.
So now I'm always smiling, always choosing, because now my teeth are much whiter.
This offer is not available in stores, so call or click now before the special buy one, get one free offer goes away.